Good morning, friends, and welcome to today's Cichlids and Coffee. Oh, yeah. Hope wherever you are, you're having a good day and drinking your favorite beverage. And I'm going to take these headphones off. I was doing a little monitoring. If I can get a quick AV check. Moderators on the stream. Let's see here. I think I saw Salient Aquatics. Hey, Salient. Good to see you, buddy. You can give me a quick AV check. Hey, Cichlid Kings. John is in the house. Another moderator. Very, very cool. We have Boss in the house, and Price Tag, Ken AJDK. Let's see here. AV Larson in the house, 3G, Fish Fam Link. Hey, Fish Fam Link, how you doing? R Baglio in the house, Fin Sanity. What a great name. Every time I think I've seen every possible great name, it's I see another one. Fin Sanity. What a great name. So let's see here. AV is good. Excellent. All right. I have some good stuff for you today. Hope you like it. We're going to be looking at we're going to be looking at a virtual, something new, something I haven't offered before, called a virtual walkthrough of the fish room. And I'm also going to be what is this? Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to Dylan. What's going on here? Okay, everybody, really on three, we're going to sing Dylan happy birthday. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to... Hey, come on, you guys aren't singing. I can tell. Happy birthday, Dylan. All right, AV is perfect. Okay, that's what I love to hear. All righty. Yeah, I messed around with it during the week and was messing around with it this morning. And anyway, today's super chats will be going towards the new microphone, and also, of course, to the haircut fund. The haircut is overdue. I'm starting to get the ducktail in the back, so your super chats will be applied. All right, Jerry Martin in the house, another moderator. Very, very good. Thank you, Jerry. And Robert Egan in the house as well. DSGF. I am glad you're all here. Gia Aquatic and Pets is here. Hello to you, my friend. Michael Lodinero is here. What a great group of fish keepers. All right. We all have this one love in common. And I just love it because, it doesn't matter, here right now for this hour, it doesn't matter what your politics are, what your, what your religion is, what country you're from. None of that matters. This hour is going to be all about something we can all agree on, which is a love of fish. And to me, that's awesome. That is just awesome. So, let's go ahead and officially get it underway. What do you say? All right. And a quick shout out to the Cichlid Shack for being a sponsor of this channel. If you want some quality fish, all the fish you see here are Shack Fish. Check them out at thecichlidshack.com. Use Shack Attack 15 for 15% off. 15% off on orders over 100. Does not apply to shipping. And use Shack Attack 10 for everything else. All right. And also a big shout out to those of you who are monthly supporters and members of the Patreon program. A big shout out to you, and I thank you very much for that monthly support. It really it really makes a bigger difference than you know. And for anyone who would like to know more about that, there is information in the link, or rather in the description under the video. So big shout out to my Patreon supporters and also to my wonderful moderators who really help keep the stream moving. Whip's World, for mic fund only, haircuts are for quitters. Now, you're probably wondering why that's so funny. And Whip, you know, I've got the receipts, I've got the evidence. I had a visit from Whip a couple days ago, and it was just a lot of fun to get with a fellow fish keeper. And I'll show you one of the pictures that we took. And there we are. And of course, Whip is, as you can see, he's a tall individual, and I am not. And so it looks like he's with his little brother, Whip and his little brother. And but at any rate, it was great having you here, Whip, and your friends. And they were driving around and stopped by. And I'm going to show you why Whip was here in a minute. And let's see here. I have a little thing I've put together, and I hope it works. It is essentially just a little virtual walkthrough. I'm just going to show you some highlights of what's going on here in the fish room, and before we get into some additional items related to today's topic. But thank you for that super chat, Whip. Very appreciated. You didn't have to, but since you did, thank you. So let's take a look here at what's going on in the fish room, and then we'll get a bit into fish and filtration, the today's thumbnail. All right, so I'm going to share with you some pictures. And the first picture is a true red tear. And this was the purpose of Whip's visit. He brought me this beautiful fish. And let's hop over to see the armored catfish. This is such a weird fish. It's also referred to as a whip tail. Every time I look at it, I think of Whip. The plants are doing great in the 55-gallon. There are little hints of black algae, but I'm sure the cats and the plecos are working on it. That's the whole bunch of Sprite I have up there. Here's the 90-gallon right behind me on the right, and you can see it is doing well. However, I have to tell you, I did lose that electric blue Ochart. He finally passed away, but it was funny. It was the same day or the morning after I picked up these three little babies. These are three electric blue Ocharts that, if you watched my my trip to the local fish store here, Music City Aquatics, what a great shop, what a great individual there. I picked up three of them. Here's the live bear tank, and they continue to have babies left and right. And we're back to this guy. Let's see here. I've got some more photos I want to show you. Let me pull them up. I have a ton of photos I want to share with you. But one thing about that, the Sprite, when it gets short, it kind of turns into a ball and it just floats around. And then the little babies, they hide inside of it. And it's really kind of cool how they just follow the ball around. They just stay inside of it like an air bubble. Hey, Robert Egan, thank you for the haircut money. And maybe I'll go this afternoon. I can tell when it's getting long because I start to get this ducktail sticks out, and at that point it either has to grow over my shoulders like Whip, or I have to go out and get a cut. So it is time to get a cut. So thank you for that, Robert. Very appreciated. And I'm going to try and get some additional photos to show you here of the fish room. But let's talk about my my favorite subjects, of course, are filtration. And I'm kind of rolling around topics for a couple talks I'm going to be giving over the next few months. Next week, I'm speaking at the East Tennessee Aquatic Society, and the topic there is going to be on getting the most out of our hobby and enjoying it, how to get the most enjoyment out of it. And a lot of it is going to have to do with, talking about how easy it is to get into the habit of looking at our aquariums and always looking for something wrong, looking for a problem. And maybe YouTubers, and myself included, are partly responsible for that, because we put out videos that are very often cautionary tales, right? Warnings, stories about disasters or problems that occurred, and so maybe we're contributing to the level of anxiety that exists out there in the community, in an attempt to help. But also, it can also bring about in people a sense of, oh no, I hope that doesn't happen to me, and takes away from that ability to just sit in front of the tank and just sort of chill out and enjoy it without, what's that little blemish on that fish? Is that ick? Is that velvet? Is that fungus? Is that bacterial infection? Oh no! Should I set up a quarantine hospital tank? What, and people run around in a state of high anxiety. And to the degree that we can remove that, the way that we can remove that from our participation in this hobby, the better. And there's certain ways, technically, and apart from just changing your mind and saying, okay, I'm not going to operate that way. I'm not going to be that person that always looks at their tank and looks for a problem. As a matter of fact, every morning when I come into the fish room, this would be like changing your mind, right? Every morning when I come into the fish room, I'm going to find a dozen things that I love. That's the first thing I'm going to do. 12 things that I absolutely love. And then after a while, you'll sort of train yourself to think that way, as opposed to coming into the fish room and already thinking, okay, who died? Who died this morning? Easy to do. Easy to get into that mindset. Okay, who died? Where's the casualty? So one way you can do that, of course, is to keep this one, the most important word in fish keeping. What do you think I think? What do you think I think is the most important word in fish keeping? What do you think it is? I'm looking at the chat. Let's see who can tell me what I think the most important word in fish keeping is. Salient Aquatics comes in with a super chat. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. Davey Larson, I will not be going for dreadlocks, but thank you for the suggestion. Okay, what's the most? Whipswirl, patience. Whipswirl is on his toes. Hey, Denny. Danny Riddell and GP are in the house. GP also got patience. And Davey Larson, patience. Optimism is important, Andy. And Danny Riddell, patience. I'll tell you, patience. So the best safeguard, I think, okay, one man's opinion, to make the experience the most enjoyable is to allow things to mature. And you do that by setting up your tanks and gradually, as opposed to slam dunking, adding 25 fish, regardless of what the I mean, I think even in the bottle, even in the instant bacteria, like the like your Fritz, your Fritz products that allow you to, like Turbo and things like that. They say that you add fish gradually, and realize that in a brand new tank, you have a very delicate, very unstable, unmature, unseasoned, for lack of a better term, unseasoned aquarium that can actually have a severe adverse reaction in the form of an ammonia spike by messing with it. For the first 6 months to a year, when you get into that 6 month to year window of an aquarium that you haven't messed with, you haven't been swapping out substrates, you haven't been changing entire filtration for about 6 months to a year, it's been the same substrate, the same filter media, roughly the same amount of fish, maybe a few more. You've added a few more as you've gone along gradually, and you're going to end up with a very stable, rock solid colony of bacteria, of beneficial bacteria. And by taking that route, you're now going to have an aquarium that is going to be forgiving when you make mistakes. So you're not going to kill everything off because you serviced both your filters at once, because you were in a hurry or decided you wanted to, because it's mature enough and it has enough beneficial bacteria, primarily, in my opinion, in the substrate, in the significant substrate that you have. In my case, 2 to 6 inches, depending where you're looking on the aquarium. Almost all of them are like that, depending where you look. They all have a significant amount of substrate, because I look at substrate as a form of beneficial bacteria media. It is my probably my most stable beneficial bacteria media, because I don't mess with it. The sand substrates you don't need to mess with at all, and because of that, they're super rock solid. The heavier gravel, like I have in my 210, you have to get in there and vacuum, because it turns into a dump, just turns into a garbage dump, and so you got to get in there and mess with it a bit. Excuse me. But in the form of like in my 210, underneath the large pebbles is sand. It's actually aragonite and crushed coral that was left over from when it was an African cichlid tank. So I have that stable section underneath there, and when I vacuum, I don't mess with that. That pretty much stays pretty stable. So you create a rock solid, stable environment, and this gives you the confidence and the ongoing stability, so that you don't suffer the kinds of setbacks that will result in unhappiness or quitting the hobby or feeling very, very let down or depressed in something that you're supposed to be really happy about. What are some other aspects? Other aspects would be, besides patience and using patience as sort of the guiding policy of what you're doing, other things would include doing research before the fact. I was joking with Whip about how often do we go out and buy a pretty fish, bring it home, and then do the research, and then realize that the fish is completely incompatible with anything that we have, and have to really hustle. Also, the use, and I can't stress this enough, also the use of quarantine and hospital tanks. Having a tank available that you can pull a fish out quickly if you need to because of aggression or sickness, and also a tank that you can quarantine fish in. That's very, very important. The what's going on, of course, is you bring a fish in and they can look great, and 2 weeks later they have a horrible case of ick, or they've brought some colomaris that didn't trigger, it didn't get really aggravated and come to the surface until they went through the stress of being moved from where they were shipped or where you brought them from, and now it shows up, and you've got them in your main tank, and at that point it's too late. You know, whether it's colomaris or parasites or anything else, you've pretty much infected everybody, and so you have to treat the whole tank. So one of the things that I would stress for long-term happiness in fish keeping is the use of quarantine and hospital tanks. In the area of filtration, one of the topics of today's live stream, I always recommend, and of course this is not practical as you get into much smaller setups. You got a 5-gallon nano tank, this isn't necessarily going to be something you're going to do. But of course, you could use 2 very small sponge filters, I guess. But I do recommend redundancy. And what do I mean by redundancy? I mean backups. I mean, this has a sump. In the sump, there's 2 pumps. So one pump fails, the other pump still goes. If the entire sump system fails, which is very unlikely, I have an FX6 on here. When the FX6 is being serviced, the sump is running and vice versa. So there's always a backup. And if the sump had to go through a couple days of being out of commission, the FX6 would turn over enough water to not let the tank pollute. Also, there's a backup with regards to power outages. I just recently added a 2-outlet air pump from my friends over at the Aquarium Co-op. And so I have 2 air stones in the 300. So if there's a power outage, that unit will detect the power outage and start pumping oxygen and break up the surface. So if I'm 2 hours away having fun over at Jackson Falls, I'm okay. Everybody's going to be all right. I've got a similar setup in most of the tanks where there's some backup in the event of a power outage. And then I also have, of course, uninterrupted power supplies, UPSs, that are big battery packs that can also run the aquariums for long periods of time in the event of power outages. We do get them here in Nashville on a pretty regular basis. But just something that I'm just giving you my tips so that you don't end up having to post a video, disaster in the fish room. So I see those videos all the time, and of course I myself have posted them. I think I saw one today from Caveman. Didn't Caveman Aquatics? I think I saw a thumbnail today about a bad outcome or some disaster or something that occurred, and I hope it doesn't mean that his large new tank is having problems. Okay, so what is the probably the second most important word? And it's not really a word, it's a phrase. And that applies to fish keeping in my mind, and that is do the work. You got to do the work. And everybody, me included, we all have moments where we're just lazy. We just, man, not today. I just feel I'm just tired. I'm exhausted. I worked too many hours, blah, blah, blah. And in some ways, I think that's a good thing about fish keeping, because it kind of forces you to suck it up, you know, and to just, all right, it's 9 o'clock at night. I should be getting ready for bed. I've got to get that water change done. I've got to get that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do that water change. And, you know, you kind of push through it, right? And that is so, it is so important. And Davey Larson, you're hinting at the next probably best important point. And I even have I even have, where is it? Let me show you. I even made a t-shirt. It'll come up here in a second. These are things you can get over at my Teespring store. Here we go. One success, mess less. One success, mess less. I've got a whole bunch of t-shirts and coffee mugs and stuff over at my Teespring store. You can check it out. But we get a little bit, I think we get a little bit frantic, and we try and do too much. Sometimes we're trying to keep up. we're trying to keep up with the latest and the greatest. You know, someone just put out a video on this filter or that kind of scape, or so we get in there and we change everything, and we swap out our filter media, we swap out our substrate, and then, assuming you're in that first 6-month window where your tank isn't really mature, and it really wouldn't matter if you did a major overhaul anyway, you end up creating a disaster that is either fish getting sick because of the stress, or an ammonia spike that just kills them off because you restart the cycle and are not even aware that you've done that, and all of a sudden ammonia and nitrite just kills them. So again, one of those tips. Let me look at what you're talking about here. I see an active chat. Let me see what's happening on the chat. Let's see here. Whips World. I recommend controller. I recommend controllers, and the controllers that I have. The thing you have to watch out with controllers is that they have a limit. They have a limit on how much wattage they can handle. So if you're using a 1,000 watt and an 800 watt, so I have like an 800 watt in the aquarium in the back corner. You can't really see it. It's a Higer. And then I have a 1,000 watt in the sump. So that's 1,800 watts that are being run through that controller. So the controller has to be very heavy duty. And so, you know, I buy these heavy duty controllers from Gemco over in California. They weigh like 5 pounds, and they're meant for heavy loads. So I have that kind of controller on the 300 and the 210 because I'm running a lot of wattage through them. And then you can use Inkbird controllers, you know, lower wattage, lower cost controllers that sell for between $30 and $50. And I have on the 255 gallons, I have what are called True Temp controllers. And I like the True Temp controllers because they allow you to calibrate. So you can use a digital thermometer and then calibrate to make sure that the temperatures match perfectly. Like when I see the temp on the controller, the reading from the aquarium, I know it's exact because I've calibrated it with my digital thermometer. So yeah, controllers. And if I had $1 for every time someone has told me my fish cooked this week because my heater malfunctioned. So avoid that disaster. Invest in a controller. Certainly, if you have a lot of fish, you know, these large, mature African cichlids can run anywhere from, depending where you shop and whether or not you're paying shipping, between $40 and $100 a piece. And so, yeah, you have a tank full of those. You're going to want to protect them. So, $100 investment in a controller is not a lot of money. So, let's see what you're talking about here on the chat. And if I missed a super chat, I'm sorry. I am scrolling the chat here. Robert Egan, I turn all my heaters off from April to November. By turn off, do you mean you unplug? And do you leave them in the tank? That would be, and I could see that. I could see the logic. Davey Larson, how do you prep your veggies? The only veggies, Davey, that I'm feeling that the only veggies right now that I'm feeding are cucumber and go ahead and pin this. I feed them cucumber and zucchini, and I just wash it, slice it, and put it in the tank. Usually I stick it on a piece of driftwood or on something that it'll stick to, and eventually it floats around because the fish will knock it loose, but it's just wash and drop. Now, they are getting a lot of other veggies. I feed them Sarah, Granu Green, so they're getting other types of vegetable product, and so they're getting it also in a dry form as well. Maybe not as nutrient rich as giving it to them fresh. I tried frozen peas. It just made such a mess. And it cleaned up eventually, but then, of course, all that mess goes into the filter. So I stopped using frozen peas. Video for geeks in the house. I see some more folks have arrived. Alex's Quality Goldfish. Hey, Alex, good to see you. Considering about a Thai oranda. Orandas are pretty. Orandas are pretty fish. My favorite is the Arcoy. The tricolor kois are my favorite. Andy, I will. Andy, it's not something I can add here, but I will try and get you a link. It is from a company called Gemco in California. For success, mess less gear. That's right. Video for geeks. You know, that's a very good comment, and I've even talked about that with my wife. We're very much into nutrition and organics and all that good stuff. And we spent yesterday going to a local farm, buying our vegetables right from the farmer, buying our meat right from the farm. But yeah, it's the way I look at ingredients and examine ingredients. I examine them more closely than when I go and buy something at the market for myself, which I repeatedly get busted on by my wife. So 4 words I hate to hear when I bring something from the market. Did you read the ingredients? By the way, talking about ingredients, I have completed. I completed my interview with Jeff over at Northfin. So watch for that interview. Watch for that interview. I'm going to be editing the video and providing it to you. I've got about an hour of content. We did it using a platform called StreamYard, and so you'll see a duck on the corner of that video. But I'm going to go ahead and edit that video and get it out to you so you can hear right from Northfin what what their take is, what's important to them, the philosophy of their company. And I really like what I heard. It's a small family run business, and you're not going to see them in every big box store in the world. By design, they kind of remind me of Sarah 10 years ago, where you'd run across them very, very rarely. Now Sarah has really expanded their operations. It seems like they've been able to keep the quality in with the volume. Sometimes the volume suffers, or rather the quality suffers when you go into big volume. But it seems like they've been able to maintain the quality. But really watch for that video on the Northfin interview. And it'll eventually end up in the playlist that includes the interview with my friends over at Sarah, the Piscean Energetics interview, and other interviews like that. I've tried to get an interview with Extreme, but I haven't been able to nail that one down for some reason. All right. Fish Fam link. So grateful for a stream and the Fish Fam community. Same here. I am so grateful and happy that such a great group of people watch the videos and also attend these streams. I see some of the comments and activity on other channels and streams, and I feel truly blessed to have this group involved in this channel. Video for geeks. She probably wouldn't mind if I had some spirulina flakes. Oh, I know there have been fish keepers before that have watched, that I've watched that have actually eaten. They put in their mouth like pellets and stuff, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, BK less THALOCC. That's got to stand for something. Keep up the work. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. Backlist the lock. I can't print it, but all right. Price tag, Ben. I've switched my diet on my Mabuna to Northfin Veggie, upped my water change schedule, and started adding aquarium salt. All good so far. Thanks for the tips. You are welcome. Now, the aquarium salt that you're adding, is it salt, like actual aquarium salt, or is it the Malawi lake salt, which is essentially trace minerals? Those are very different products. The aquarium salt, like Epsom salt and API aquarium salt, those things will help with slime coat. They help with constipation, right? They get the fish unconstipated, unstuck. But it's very different from adding the trace minerals in appropriate ratio, proportions that they exist in Lake Malawi, which is what the Malawi lake salt is. It's very different product. Henry Chavez, how are the expert Maddox doing? The expert Maddox are doing well. They're sort of the workhorses in the fish room. I keep 2 sets of expert Maddox sponges in the sumps so that they're seasoned, have beneficial bacteria, and are ready to go if I need to set up a tank immediately. And I have the black, the transparent casing black one in the 55 with the true red terror, and that I just recently got from Whip. And I've got one running in the 29 that's behind the 90, where I have my brand new electric blue Acaras. So I use them all the time. If you put them in a smaller aquarium, you can reduce the number of compartments all the way down to 1 if you had to. And if you wanted to, you could even take all the filtration off, put a little sponge over the bottom, and just use it as a power head. I mean, it's very flexible. You can do a lot of things with it. You could fill the chambers in with, you could just fill it up with biomedia. You could fill the chambers up with matrix or ceramic balls or, whatever you want. I mean, there's has a lot of flexibility. Alex's quality goldfish. I just had a new fish get constipated for a week. Kind of scary. And, you can give them 1 tablespoon of aquarium salt for every 5 gallons. dissolve it first. Really dissolve it well, like in a cup, and then pour it in. And now, I'm not a goldfish keeper, so be sure that goldfish can tolerate salt. Goldfish can, in my mind, if you can put them in a frozen pond, they can probably tolerate salt. But check it out first. Some fish are not salt tolerant. So let's see here. Video for Geeks has a question about the Sun 3000, and no, I have not done a video on that. I know when it first came out, they were calling it the FX Killer because it had the features and the water movement at about half the cost. But I'm not sure if that turned out to be the case. Maybe they had some issues with it. I have not used it, so I can't really comment. If any of you here on the stream have used the Sun 3000, go ahead and comment, and let's let Video for Geeks know about that. It's a big can. I think it's at least a 5-gallon can. So it's very bulky, very heavy. You got to make sure you have the right space for it, and it has some very nice digital controls on it, as opposed to sort of the manual dial in and dial out that you have to do on the FX models. But it's if it's like the experience I've had with other Sun canisters, I mean, you get a lot of bang for the buck. Ray wants to know about water changes, and I have found personally, because I fill from the tap, I try and get it within a degree or two, and keeping in mind that with large refills, like if I take this tank down a third, that's 100 gallons. So a couple times during refilling, I'll check the temp from the tap to make sure it's not hasn't changed much. Someone started taking a shower, running the dishwasher, and all of a sudden, the temperature shifted. So, but I'd say within a degree or two, try and keep it. Now, there's another school of thought that says it don't matter, and I've heard people telling me that they don't temperature match. They just fill it up from the tap, and just like rainwater, right? So, personally, I don't have the stomach or the courage to do that. So I try and come in within a degree or two, keeping in mind that when you turn everything off, depending on how long the maintenance is that you're doing, your aquarium temperature is going to shift a little bit. The bigger the aquarium, the less the shift. On a small little 5-gallon tank, like the one you see behind me here, right there, that thing will drop 5 degrees. This tank will hardly drop at all. It's just a lot of it. Again, this is why big tanks are a little more forgiving, and you can make a mistake in a big tank and end up okay. They're wanting to be fed. An idea of the size of these fish compared to my hand. Leucochromis rhodesii yellow. What a beast. All right. I'm going to cruise this chat some more. Go back a little bit, see what I missed. If I missed a super chat, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's funny that, Whip wore a shirt that talked about Oscars, and if you look at the picture, take a look at the picture there, and look at who's looking over my shoulder. Can you see who's looking over my shoulder in the picture? Little albino there checking things out. Thought that was kind of cute. Let's see here. Yeah, Robert, thank you for that. Yeah, I think they are kind of, they are pretty healthy. Don't talk about it. Don't want to jinx it. That huge bumper on the bottom of the mouth of the eye biter. We can get him over here. Used to be like a little black goatee. Now it's turning into a big, giant, bulbous growth. And I think Whip said it's from banging into the glass. I don't know about that, but so I'm keeping an eye on that. And so, there's always something, you look for, but at the same time, it's a lot more right going on than wrong right now. And that's a good thing. Jerry Martin says that fish came from a trusted source. There was still a problem. It sounds like you're in the middle of a conversation with somebody, but even a trusted source, I would suggest quarantine. I don't medicate during quarantine, and I haven't had a problem with that, but some people like to do that. Certainly, if you're getting fish from an international source, like let's say when Corey gets a shipment in from the Far East or something, yeah, he'll put them through a deworming and a parasite and an ick treatment, and he uses that drug trio. So I don't necessarily do that. All right, I'm cruising the chat here and take a look at your questions. Salient Aquatics, how long does it take you to make a diagram like that? That's pretty artistic. Hold your phone sideways. It's like there's an optical illusion. This is what I'm talking about. Must have taken a lot of work here. Amazing. Cat Sailor, redundancy. Learned that from NASA at an early stage of life. Watching, hearing all that went into space launches. Yep. Also, when you fly, when you fly, it's good. It's good to know that if the wing flaps, if the main cabling of the wing flap fails, there's a backup cabling. If the pilot passes out, there's another pilot up there that there is redundancy. And so, yeah, there's a very, very important. Jerry Martin says, nothing more fun than doing the work on your FX and put it together and it's not working. Oh boy. Make sure that your impeller and motor housing are seated correctly and clamped down. If it's not clamped down, you'd see a leak. Be sure that the FX is filled before you fire it up. I mean, I don't know why else it wouldn't work. That's very frustrating, especially with an expensive unit like that. If it's under warranty, I think Fluval is pretty good about fixing or replacing. Christine Broder, I'm about to do something. I'm about to go away for a long weekend. And so this is a very pertinent comment, Christine. I'm going to be going away. And what I do is I leave little vitamin packets, plastic packets, each one with a date on it. And the person who's watching my fish drops that one packet into each aquarium once a day. And that's it. I do tell them to eyeball the tanks. And I tell them that if a fish were to die while I'm away, please remove it. Otherwise, don't worry about it. Just send me a picture. Don't panic. Nothing I can do from 200 miles away. But yeah, I leave second grade level instructions and I let them go a little hungry while I'm away, and that's okay. They can survive on one meal a day. As a matter of fact, some people, that's how they feed. They feed one meal a day. The truth is with African cichlids, when you look at how long a female holds, what is that, 24 days? That a female African cichlid, mouth brooder, right, will hold and not eat anything. Granted, they're very weak at the end of 24 days, but it goes to show you just how long they can go. Very often people who ship fish, they will go ahead and not feed the fish for a day or two so that the fish, before shipping, so that the fish doesn't create a lot of waste in the bag while being shipped. So when you get those fish, they can be a bit hungry. So you let them settle in and then give them a feeding. You know, Andy, that is sort of my purpose on YouTube. I think if people learned just a handful of simple tips, yeah, patience, don't do too much at once, add fish gradually, research your fish. Do they like a water movement? Do they don't like water movement? So should you have power heads in there? Be sure you're providing oxygen with surface tension breakup, whether it's from a sponge filter, the placement of outputs of, whatever it might be, break up that surface so they have oxygen and provide oxygen in the event of a power outage somehow. Yeah. Simple tips. So Robert says he unplugs the heaters and leaves them in the tanks. Yeah. That will, of course, extend the life of the heater. I think the average life of a heater is about 2 years when you probably should replace it to avoid a sticky thermostat. But a sticky thermostat is not a problem if you have a controller. Because it'll catch it and turn the power off. All a controller does is turn the power off when the tank has reached the desired temperature. And so it doesn't let your heater cook your fish. Henry Bowman, I'll be in Daytona, Florida. Henry, you're going to be there for Aquashella? I'm going to be in Daytona for Aquashella in November. Come on by. Jerry, did you answer Henry? Jerry, you know about some fish stores in Daytona, don't you? You know that whole area. All right, any questions? Throw them at me. GP says that if you with stuff in their eyes, very true. I mean, very often, it can be, I have seen bacterial infections in the eyes, and that usually followed an injury, like the fish scraped against a sharp rock. got startled, banged against something. I try not to keep very sharp items in the aquarium, especially with big fish who will startle even in the dark. They'll dart and hit something. But also it can, so it's not always bad water, but it can also, but it often can be. And sometimes the best treatment is a water change. You know, like instead of your usual once every 2 weeks or once a week, double up your water changes for a couple of weeks and see if that clears it up. And it just might. It just might. All right. Any other questions? Go ahead and hit me. What causes a white dot on a discus eye? Well, Vibes Aquatics has a question. If you are very familiar with discus, go ahead and give Vibes Aquatics a tip here on what causes a white dot. Now, I guess genetically, you could have a dot in your eye, just like a human can have a dot. But it can also be rubbing against something, banging against something. And if you have it with fish that are nippy, maybe it got nipped in the eye. But again, I think clean water and keep an eye on it. Make sure it doesn't start to get real fuzzy or get any kind of a growth on it, like any kind of like a velvety or bacterial growth. Then I think you'd really have to worry. I had a fish lose an eye. That old Autopharynx tetrastigma lost an eye, and it started like a little cloudy spot in the eye, and it turned into an infection. GP Vibes, could it be ick? I mean, you'd usually see an ick break out on the body. It looks like little pieces of sand or salt, and it would be on top of the eye, not in the eye necessarily. So, yeah, keep an eye on it. Leroy, I haven't been interested necessarily. It hasn't been a fish that was high on my list, a parrot. I like true parrots. The true parrots I like. But the ones that have been genetically modified or bred where they have that sort of scrunchy head and the googly eyes, I think they're cute, but I would probably get into other kinds of fish first. Just to be entirely honest with you, not a fish that's on my list at the moment. And I hope I haven't insulted all of you parrot lovers out there. Ray Barksdale feeds his fish every other day. And I've seen that. I've seen that especially in the African cichlid community where bloat can be a concern, where people will feed every other day. And you think, well, gee, are your fish going to be suffering? And not necessarily. You're feeding them nutritious food. And I think that would be a tip that I would add to today's live stream. Don't compromise on food. Try and get the best food you can and try and go with a low ash, low fillers. Try and get food that has things that they would never come across in nature as the fourth or fifth item. Don't have it be a primary item like number one or number two. If number one or number two is wheat, stay away from that food. But yeah, if you're feeding quality food, you could probably get away every other day, especially with the bigger fish who have a fat reserve. Fry You probably have to feed every day, twice a day, 3 times a day. They have almost no fat, and they're burning like a super high metabolism. Also keep in mind that if you run your tanks warm, 79, 80, 81, 82, you probably need to feed more because your fish are going to be at a higher metabolism. If you're going to be going away on vacation, let's say in about 3 weeks, and you gradually lower your tanks from 81 down to 78, gradually, and then leave instructions for a once-a-day feeding, you should be fine, because in lowering the temperature, you did 2 things. You lowered metabolism and you increased oxygen availability. So just a little tip that actually came out of my interview with Northfin. He mentioned how the amount you feed can sometimes be driven by the temperature of your aquarium. Just something to keep in mind, a nuance. So let's do this before we end off this stream. Let's go ahead and take the lap of the fish room. Let's see if I can turn this camera around and show you what's going on live. So hold on one second. Let me go ahead and do that. So hang in there. Well, you've been watching these fish the entire time. They're all doing great. I'm keeping an eye on the growth on the lower jaw of the eye biter. I'm not too concerned about it since it seems to be a normal thing with eye biters. But if it gets the size of a ping pong ball, I'm going to be a little worried. The live bear tank finally have some guppy fry in there. I was getting a lot of the platies and mollies, but no guppies. But there is a guppy fry in there hiding in the Sprite. I hope he makes it. The sliver there, a sliver of the 29 where the electric blue Ocharas are at. I'll do a walk through the fish room. Very active. They're eating. They're going to be ready for the tank within 30 days. Ready for the. I might just put them in the planted tank and just see how they do in there. Here's the 90-gallon, and as I mentioned, I've lost my the big electric blue Cara finally passed away. He's an old fish, and everybody else is looking good. planted tank is rocking and rolling. Everybody in there is doing great. The little red-tailed rasboras, really acclimated. The autocichlids are doing a great job keeping the any algae in check. Of course, I got a couple plecos in there too. So you can see all that Sprite I've got on the top there. I'm going to end up putting some of that into the 29-gallon live bear, and but it's just a big bunch of Sprite I picked up over at the Aquatic Critter. I'm really liking what I'm seeing in this planted tank. And let's see if we can get that. Let's see if we can get that the true red terror on the camera here. Called a true red terror. It was explained to me, and I'm doing a little research on him. He'll probably end up in the 210. Hopefully he'll get along. Hopefully he doesn't eat the plecos that are in there. He's pushed their little caves around, but the plecos are still alive. All right, let me just set the lighting up again, and we'll be good to go. I'll put out a more complete walkthrough so you can take a better look at those electric blue Ocharas. Very cute. And to watch for that, I did release a walkthrough this morning. If you haven't seen it, be sure to check it out. It is a fish room lap of the fish room. It was released this morning, so check out that video and be on the lookout for the Northfin interview that's coming up. And I think that's it. I think we've pretty much run out of time. We're 9 minutes over. I don't want to take up your whole weekend. But thank you, everybody, for participating. Thank you to everybody that answered other people's questions in the chat. That's also very, very helpful. We all learn from each other, right? So that's pretty much it for me. Thank you to my wonderful moderators. Thank you to my super chatters. I will use that money for a haircut, I promise. And throw a little bit in the mic fund, too. So thank you, everybody. And with that in mind, we can go ahead and end off on this live stream. You're very appreciated. Never forget, you rock, my friends. You are the best. Bye for now.